Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Today, I would like to take a look at a piece of terrain that I finished and shipped out to Catalyst Game Labs for use at their GenCon booth to demo Shadowrun. Over the years, it seems like a great many of the Shadowrun games that I played in, at some point, we end up in a warehouse. So I felt obligated to get potentially new players up to speed. This particular warehouse is a 20-inch by 18-inch structure with 6.5-inch tall walls, owned and operated by Errant Security, a subsidiary of Ares Macro Technology, currently the holder of the Seattle Metroplex security contract. Errant's standard colors are red and black. I incorporated some black elements into the paint scheme, but I was really looking for this piece to pop, to stand out. So I went with white as the base color for the vast majority of exterior structure and interior structure, as it turns out too. White is a great color for showing weathering and grunge in general. What really made this piece pop, though, was the red along the edge, and a very bright red, I might add, too. Now, on the topic of grunge and weathering, the goal was to create a warehouse that looked like it had been around for a long time, with multiple layers of paint, chipping, little pock marks, paint jobs that hadn't even been completed. The caustic atmosphere of the environment literally eating away at the structure. Stage actors are known to use grand gestures and project their voices to deliver a performance that reaches the entire audience. In this case, I opted for something of an over-the-top presentation of the weathering on this structure, starting with a new paint chipping technique. The results were a bit mixed. The randomness of it is absolutely great. You just can't get that sort of randomness by painting. It needs to occur randomly, strangely enough, and we aren't random enough creatures, or at least I'm not. However, there is a decided lack of control, as you can tell in a couple of instances, utilizing this technique. What I did was airbrush on a brighter white over the original white paint. Then, without giving it enough time to properly cure, I think it was only about 6 hours, I went ahead and put on some blue painter's tape. 2 hours later, I think, I started removing it. And as I did this, because the upper layer of paint hadn't been properly cured, it peeled off in places. The lack of control, as you can see here, is really noticeable. I mean, that's a big paint chip in the back there. Far bigger than I really wanted, but you make do with what you have. The cool part about this is that once you have that paint chip, all you have to do is go in with a brush, paint in the exposed concrete, and you end up with this really nice looking random paint chip, vast though it may be. You have this ragged line, where the paint was pulled, and in some cases you can actually see that it's still actually separated up from the base material. That's an end result that I have not seen accomplished just by painting alone. More traditional paint chipping is used on the bottom of the bay doors and along the bottom of the upper edge stripping. This basically used orange paint over the red, followed by a burnt umber for the exposed metal. There are two different schools of thoughts, basically, on how paint chipping should look. There's the Games Workshop stance that as soon as the paint is chipped away, what you have below is bright, shiny metal. However, in reality, more often than not, what you'll see is kind of this rusted, corroded metal, which burnt umber does a pretty good job of reproducing. I would have done more of this paint chipping along the entire structure. However, it just proved to be problematic with the time that I had available to me. The vast majority of this model is comprised of tempered hardboard. This is the same material used for pegboard, just no holes. I use this for the walls and the floors. To get the desired thickness for the walls, I added a square wooden rod sandwiched between two layers of the tempered hardboard, acting as a spacer. This also kept the walls hollow, allowing me to run LED wiring. There are some drawbacks to tempered hardboard, though. If it takes a hard enough impact on the corners or edges, it'll splay out. That tends to get worse and worse as time goes by. To protect against this, I added this edge stripping, and that was cut out from a plastic sign on my mini table saw. The bottom of the walls has a non-slip rubber liner glued into place, and this is in the hopes of keeping the warehouse from sliding on the demo table. The signs I did a Google search for and came up with a handful that were appropriate. I even found a site that actually let me put in text, so I created a few of the signs that were a little bit more Shadowrun themed. These were color printed out on photographic paper and then white glued, PVA glued, white glue, Elmer's glue, same thing, into place. All of the doors, the weapon cabinet, flat screen monitors, and exterior comm panel are from Ananosity's workshop. The lockers, barrels, control panel, computer server, security cameras, fans, chairs, and some of the crates were cast from Hearst Arts molds. These details really brought a lot to the final look of the piece. The security office and entry area were constructed out of clear acrylic plexiglass, painted white. The black strips were basically also cut from a plastic sign, along with the LED housings and the door frames. The floor is elevated. This provides a space for the electronics that had to go in to run the LEDs. And it makes sense for a warehouse with these sort of elevated freight doors. I was thinking about using rare earth magnets to help keep the barrel stacks and some of the crate stacks in place on the floor. I went ahead and I got some of that magnetic paint that you may have seen at some of those home improvement stores. That turned out to be a fail. There just wasn't enough. I either should have used stronger magnets, which would have been bigger magnets, or I should have put less coating on the floor so that there was enough iron close enough to the magnets within the magnetic paint for it to latch onto. That said, I actually did get some compliments from people that said they really liked the look of the texture of the floor. The roughness of the texture really did help hold dry pigments. These were MIG pigments that I used to simulate forklift travel, some spills, and maybe even a small fire in one corner there. The LEDs turned out really good. The red ones are incredibly bright. If you look into them, it's like looking into a laser. I mean, you got the starburst and, all these caustics going on just naturally. I would have preferred to have them flush fit or recessed mounted, but the LEDs were simply too long, and I didn't make the wall thick enough for them to fit within there. That was one of those instances where I built the walls, then I got the LEDs, and then I realized I was kind of hosed. So I made do with what I had. Maybe fiber optics is a better way to go on future projects. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. There are 3 switches, which you can see here. One turns on the red LEDs, another for the KE sign out front, and then there's a slider switch to make the red LEDs flash. To hide these, I have some hollow crates that go over the top of them. Due to the power requirements of the LEDs, it just made more sense to go with AC. So we built in an electrical cord, basically, that it can run off AC power. It's not perfect. I mean, I would rather not have anything like that exposed, snap the suspenders of disbelief. The decals, I bought some decal paper from Micromark, and I have to say that I'm underwhelmed by the end results. Even understanding that larger decals are going to be problematic. The real problem here was getting the damn things to release from the backing paper. Compounding this situation is, in spite of adhering to these instructions of sealing the decals after printing them out, the ink ended up being released with any, and I repeat, any handling of them at all. Using the decal softening solvent and setting solution did not accomplish anything. I turned to future acrylic floor wax and got somewhat better results. If anyone has suggestions on what they use to seal their decals after printing them out, I would certainly like to hear from you because I need to figure out something different. Now that my complaining's out of the way, the decals that I did get to stick add a tremendous splash of color to the warehouse walls. I'm really happy with them. To ensure that the crates and barrels travel well, I use some pick and pluck foam, as it will be placed inside the warehouse and then packed into the shipping crate. The AC plug is wrapped in bubble wrap and also placed alongside of the pick and pluck foam holding the barrels and crates. The base of the crate has 3 inches of foam, that green foam you see there, hot glued to the bottom. At the corners, I went with a 1/2 inch of blue board foam and a 1/2 inch of green foam also glued into place. To keep the warehouse from shifting in travel, I included about 3 inches of that green foam on top, although I didn't take a picture of it for this video. This foam actually sits about 1 inch above the lip of the crate, and it rests on the edges of the warehouse. To get the lid of the crate into place, you have to literally press down on it to compress the foam on top, so then that you can get the lag bolts to go all the way through the frame. I was really nervous about this, but it seemed like the best sort of trade-off to get something that you could actually get it down into the crate and then back out without having foam rubbing up against it the entire time along the sides and stuff, as I was less worried about the top and the bottom of the warehouse. What I liked about it, the compromise that I had to make between durability and weight for the warehouse is actually pretty good. It's far less than a resin cast piece would weigh, but substantially, and I would say tremendously stronger than blue board foam or styrofoam in general would be for the same type of thing. It's playable. There aren't a whole lot of protrusions that are going to snag clothing on or going to snap off or impede movement of miniatures within it. The look of it, it really does look like a warehouse that's been through the ringer, and it fits the dystopian theme of Shadowrun. The most important thing, the warehouse fits on the demo table that Catalyst Game Labs is going to use, with space to spare around the sides. I was really pleased with how the security office turned out, the coloring that we got from the decals that we're able to stick. Very pleased with the plastic edge stripping. I think that that will really protect the walls of the tempered hardboard and keep them going. The shipping crate. You know, you're like, well, it's a box. Well, yeah, but it's a box that serves a very important purpose. It has to keep that warehouse from being damaged while shipping. Now, I put some thought into the design of the crate because, you know, you want it to be useful for people. So along the bottom, there's 3 1x2 inch laths screwed into the bottom of it. And this basically raises it up enough so that you can easily get your hands underneath the entire crate to lift it up, instead of just, you know, relying on the lip of the frame along the sidewalls there. The foam that goes into the corners, the blue board foam, that helps seal up the corners just in case there's casual exposure to water. Let me repeat that, casual exposure to water. Do not throw that crate into the lake and expect it to float, okay? I did caulk the exterior base where the walls meet the actual flooring. And that's really to keep out dust and, you know, any small vermin, you know, bugs or anything like that that might want to crawl in there. I also went ahead and we applied some deck sealer to the inside and the outside of the wood of the crate, just to, you know, so that it'll last a little bit longer. Okay, so that's what I liked about it. Things that I would do different. I would do a lot more paint chipping along the bottom of the red stripping and the door frames. And I would use the painting technique rather than the let's roll the dice and pull off the tape technique. I'm going to have to really abuse one of my larger brushes so that I get a much more irregular pattern to it when it comes to doing the stains that go down the sides of the warehouse wall. Few places it looked a little bit uniform and kind of vexed me a little bit. If I had to do this warehouse again, I would bite the bullet and spend some extra money to get some like channel stripping instead of just using plastic sign for the edge stripping. I'm already planning on getting micro marks. They have a powered miter saw, so I can do some precise miter cuts. I would make the corners look a lot snazzier than they do currently. The Knight Errant sign, the lit sign out front, needs a complete redesign. I should have included foil inside of it to help disperse the 3 white LEDs that were in there to bounce the light and give some more even distribution of it. So I'm not happy with the Knight Errant light. The red LEDs, I would have put them a second time around. I would put them on a synchronized flash so that they flash together. As it is now, they're random, which isn't horrible, but you would think that Knight Errant could afford to have their warning lights synchronized. I would have liked to include a power and utility area along with a bathroom. I guess they go out behind the warehouse. I don't know. I should have thought about that. The other thing that I would do is some more details. Trash cans, some spent shell casings. I was thinking about a couple of sentry guns that are mounted up on the walls that are in like this recessed tracking built into the warehouse walls. And then they have these little rare earth magnets on the end of them so that you could slide them along any point along the exterior of the warehouse. That way, because they're magnets, you can take them off when it's time to pack it up and you don't have to worry about them snapping off. A few empty weapon mags on top of the lockers would have been cool. Some pictures from the perspective of the security cameras up on the monitors. I'm still trying to figure out how to really do that, but I think that would have looked really cool. I was happy with the crate, and yet at the same point in time, it came in really heavy. Crate weighed a little more than 40 pounds, 44 pounds with the warehouse in it. So I'd like that level of durability, but I'd like to get it a little bit lighter. And I am pleased to report that I was informed by Jason Hardy that the warehouse arrived intact and ready to go. I'm very pleased about that. That does it for me. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope that if you were at GenCon, you had a chance to swing by the Catalyst booth, check out their stuff, and to take a look at the Knight Errant warehouse. Thanks a lot. Have fun. Play games.